great. I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a psychopath? No, I've been getting a lot of questions about like, how do I feel? I feel amazing.
In the end, it's really not about raw talent or artistic brilliance anymore. It's about the spectacle of watching someone who believed they were above. Criticism finally get humbled by the very industry that once celebrated them. Hollywood has always loved a rise and fall story, but few have been as dramatic or as public as Rachel Zegler's. She was once the fresh face of promise, the prodigy plucked from obscurity and handed the keys to the kingdom. Now, she's the name people can't stop whispering about for all the wrong reasons. Her downfall has become the kind of drama that people watch unfold with morbid fascination, like a glitter-covered train wreck in slow motion. Rachel's latest controversy centers around her performance in Evita, a stage revival that was supposed to mark her grand comeback. Instead, it turned into another disaster. Not long after Curtain Up, chaos hit. Eyewitnesses claim she abruptly left mid-performance, leaving the cast and audience in disbelief. Who walks off stage in the middle of a show and expects applause? Fans who had paid premium ticket prices were furious, demanding refunds, explanations, and apologies. Social media lit up with outrage and confusion. Many people, especially outside the theater world, still barely knew who she was, apart from the fact that she was the actress who somehow managed to alienate Disney fans and destroy Snow White, one of the studio's most beloved classics. Her attempt to transform Snow White into a modern, feminist version backfired spectacularly. She mocked the original, dismissed critics, and told audiences that the story needed to be reimagined for a new generation. That arrogance was the match that lit the fire. The internet turned against her almost instantly. She couldn't stop talking about her haters, posting defiant messages, and acting as if she was the victim of some grand misunderstanding. But the truth was simpler. People were tired of being lectured, especially by someone who hadn't yet proven she could lead a successful film. Now, Rachel was hoping that Evita would save her career, that a serious stage role could wash away the embarrassment of Snow White, but it didn't. The irony is almost cinematic. The same girl who at just 17 won a Golden Globe for West Side Story and was crowned Hollywood's next big thing by Disney. Executives is now struggling to fill theater seats. Disney once looked at her and thought, she's the future. They threw a $270 million budget at her for Snow White, a staggering bet on an untested star. But everything that could go wrong did. She became the first actress in modern Hollywood history to become box office poison before her movie even premiered. The moment her name was attached, people tuned out. The backlash was relentless. 2 million dislikes on trailers, boycott petitions in multiple countries, and social media campaigns that mocked the film's tone and her interviews. Critics called her performance self-indulgent, and audiences called the film a soulless parody of Disney magic. Before anyone even saw it, the film was already dead in the water. Rachel had turned a fairy tale into a personal platform for activism, and when the public pushed back, Disney panicked and tried to bury the entire thing. For months, they pretended it didn't exist. Even old Walt Disney quotes resurfaced. One in particular, "Never remake Snow White," began trending, almost like the ghost of Disney himself was shaking his head from beyond the grave. Then came Evita, a new country, a new stage, and supposedly a new chapter. Except it went up in flames, too. Reports from London said that about 15 minutes into the interval, it was announced that her understudy, Bella Brown, would be stepping in to finish the performance. That's when the story took an even stranger turn. During one of the most iconic numbers, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, Rachel didn't perform it for the audience inside the theater. Instead, she stormed outside, climbed onto a balcony, and sang it to the street below. Not for the ticket holders who paid real money, but for random passersby on the sidewalk. Imagine paying hundreds of pounds for a seat, only to hear the lead actress perform outside with street noise, honking cars, and echo bouncing off the walls. Her understudy, Bella Brown, later posted graciously on Instagram, saying the incident reminded her how important swings and covers are in the theater world, how they're the backbone that keeps a show running. Meanwhile, Rachel was reportedly set to return for another performance a few days later, but the public reaction had already shifted from frustration to disbelief. Ticket prices plummeted overnight. Some sites even listed seats for literal $0 because demand had collapsed that hard. Whole rows were empty, and theater promoters tried to spin it as some kind of experimental audience engagement concept. No one was fooled. Audiences weren't clapping out of admiration. They were clapping out of relief. relief that the chaos was over, that the show had somehow survived the drama, and maybe, just maybe, that Rachel Zegler's era of unearned spotlight was finally coming to a close. What began as a promising career built on genuine talent had become a masterclass in how to burn through goodwill faster than a headline refreshes on social media. And now, the industry watches. Because in Hollywood, the higher you fly, the louder the fall. And for Rachel Zegler, that fall isn't just a stumble, it's a full-blown spectacle the world can't seem to stop watching. Paying customers had filled their seats, waiting eagerly to see Rachel Zegler shine on stage, and instead, she vanished. Mid-performance, she took off and climbed onto a balcony where she belted out Evita's signature number, "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," to random passers-by for free. The people who had paid full price were left staring at an empty stage while she gave away the moment outside like it was a street performance. And then came the cherry on top, a viral clip of Rachel breaking down in tears after a standing ovation, mascara running, voice trembling. But no one was fooled. It wasn't emotion, it was damage control. The makeup was waterproof, but the desperation wasn't. Critics didn't buy it, audiences didn't buy it, and the only thing people actually did buy was refund insurance. Rachel herself once said, "As a white Latina, I hold a lot of privilege, and it's my duty to open doors for the disenfranchised." But lately, it seems she's been shutting more doors than she's opened, especially the ones that led to her credibility. Let's rewind to the burning dumpster fire that was Snow White. Disney spent a staggering $270 million making it, plus another $140 million in marketing. That's over $410 million poured into a single film that was supposed to be the studio's next fairy tale phenomenon. You'd think with that kind of investment, they'd at least fill a few theaters. Instead, opening weekend numbers came in at just $43 million domestically. Not a flop, but a full-blown financial faceplant. And it didn't stop there. In China, a market that usually prints money for Disney, Snow White scraped together less than $1 million. You heard that right? Less than $1 million in the world's second largest box office market. People probably spent more on popcorn than that movie made overseas. By the second week, it had collapsed another 66%, then 60% more the next. What was supposed to be a bold reimagining of a classic turned into a cinematic ghost town. Theaters started pulling it from primetime slots, relegating it to 11 a.m. weekday screenings like some forgotten community college project. Others simply cut it from their schedules without warning. No fanfare, no farewell, just gone. And when the dust settled, Disney insiders started pointing fingers. Not at the writers, not at the marketing team, not even at the executives who greenlit CGI dwarfs that looked like melting wax sculptures. No, they blamed Rachel. She had been the face of the campaign, and now she was the face of its failure. Some even started calling her PR poison, which, to be fair, wasn't exactly inaccurate. Because every time Rachel opened her mouth during that press tour, it was like watching a studio crisis unfold in real time. She didn't just promote the movie, she detonated it. In interviews, she mocked the original prince, calling him a stalker. She called the story weird and outdated, and announced that the new Snow White wasn't about love anymore. Gone was charm, kindness, or romance. Instead, she declared her version a feminist crusade. Forget the fairy tale, she basically said. Snow White's a girl boss dictator now? Excuse me? The original animated classic came out in 1937. It's literally a piece of film history. And she dismissed it like it was a bad TikTok. And then came the infamous blizzard comment. Apparently in Rachel's world, Snow White isn't named for her fair skin anymore. It's because she survived a blizzard. That's how far we've drifted from the source material. At this rate, Cinderella's going to be renamed Dish Girl because she once washed a plate. Makes perfect sense, right? Even her press interviews with Gal Gadot were painful to watch. No chemistry, no warmth. Just two co-stars sitting side by side, pretending to be friends while radiating mutual discomfort. Every clip looked like a hostage video. You could practically hear them both thinking, "Please let this be over." And it wasn't just the fans who were turned off. Across the political spectrum, left, right, and everything in between, people agreed on one thing. Rachel Zegler was a disastrous casting choice. Bill Maher and Candace Owens, two people who can't even agree on the color of the sky, both called her one of the worst decisions Hollywood had ever made. Let that sink in. She managed to unite polar opposites through sheer, catastrophic miscasting. That's a talent no acting coach on earth can teach. The worst part, she wasn't even subtle about it. Rachel seemed determined to burn down the entire fairy tale legacy one smug soundbite at a time. Every red carpet smirk, every condescending quote, every tone-deaf moment turned her from rising star to public enemy number one. She mocked fairy tales, sneered at romance, and dismissed the entire Disney legacy like she was above it. And when people called her out, she didn't reflect or apologize. She doubled down. That's not confidence, that's narcissism. That's a 23-year-old who thought a Disney princess role made her a moral authority instead of an entertainer. It's someone so consumed by her own image that she forgot why people fell in love with movies in the first place. She once said, "People will assume it's a love story just because we cast a guy." Then, almost jokingly, she added, "All of Andrew Burnap's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." That line wasn't just arrogance, it was prophecy. Because after everything, the only thing Hollywood did cut was her career momentum. In the span of a year, Rachel Zegler went from Disney's golden girl to a walking PR nightmare. Proof that no amount of talent, privilege, or studio hype can protect you when ego overshadows artistry. And now, as the curtain falls once again, all that's left is a trail of glitter, controversy, and a career that might never fully recover. And here's the brutal truth. Nobody wanted this version of Snow White. Nobody asked for a TikTok activist in a tiara. People wanted wonder. They wanted magic, nostalgia, charm, something timeless and heartwarming. What they got instead was a lecture in a ball gown. Rachel Zegler gave audiences side eyes instead of smiles, speeches instead of songs, and a 2-hour identity crisis wrapped in chiffon. She treated every interview like a TED Talk nobody bought tickets for. Oh, classic Rachel. Take any camera, any microphone, any moment, and turn it into a stage for social commentary. Snow White wasn't a fairy tale anymore. It became her personal platform, a sermon about patriarchy, feminism, and everything supposedly wrong with the world. What was once a simple story about love and courage turned into a manifesto about modern womanhood, delivered with the energy of someone scolding the audience for showing up. Fans were baffled. Critics were exhausted. People didn't want politics in their popcorn, they wanted the same magic that defined Disney for generations. Instead, they got moral superiority served cold. Watching Rachel's press tour felt less like movie promotion and more like being trapped in a women's studies lecture you never signed up for. Meanwhile, the public backlash was brewing. Disney fans, nostalgic families, even lifelong supporters, all felt betrayed. What should have been a wholesome family film was suddenly being labeled woke trash by the same fans Disney relied on for decades. Online, outrage spread like wildfire. One viral post summed it up perfectly. "We wanted magic, and she gave us misery." And then there was the moment that sealed her reputation. That comment she made about fans at Disneyland. Standing in the happiest place on earth, surrounded by people who literally grew up with these stories, Rachel admitted she pretends to be nice to the fans who approach her for photos. Pretends like they're an inconvenience, not the people paying her bills. Imagine having the audacity to play a Disney princess and then sneer at the very children who look up to you. What's next, Rachel? I hate puppies too. By this point, even her defenders were running out of excuses. Rachel had turned every PR opportunity into a disaster. And when she started avoiding press entirely, fans and insiders alike knew something was going on behind the scenes. The studio was worried, and with good reason, because soon after came the tweet that practically detonated her career in real time.
Time for a little fashion show, I think, maybe. Let's go. First of all, I'm wearing this cute little tank top from Tilly's.
Right in the middle of the Snow White promotional campaign, Rachel decided to tweet "Free Palestine." Now, of course, everyone is entitled to their opinions. But context matters, and maybe, just maybe, dropping a political grenade while promoting a Disney family movie alongside an Israeli co-star wasn't the wisest move. Her co-star, Gal Gadot, suddenly found herself the target of online hate and even death threats. What followed was pure chaos. Disney's PR department went into meltdown mode. They reportedly assigned Rachel an actual social media handler, a babysitter for her Twitter account. Imagine being such a liability that $1 billion studio has to supervise your internet time. And yet even that couldn't save her. The damage was done. The internet was already on fire. Within hours, "You're Not My Snow White" was trending worldwide. Meme compilations, parody videos, and fan edits flooded every platform. She wasn't just criticized, she was mocked. She became the main character in every online meltdown thread for weeks. Every time she tried to speak, it backfired. Every apology, every statement, every appearance only fueled the flames. And as if to underline the whole circus, she once bragged in an interview, "I'm going to stand there 18 hours a day in a dress. I deserve to be paid for every hour it's streamed online." That line became an instant meme. People laughed, not because it was funny, but because it summed everything up perfectly. Rachel wasn't talking about art. She was talking about herself. She wanted to be seen as brave, progressive, and powerful. But what the audience saw was arrogance, self-importance, and zero understanding of what made Disney's magic timeless. She wasn't saving the princess. She was dismantling her. The more she spoke, the more she proved the point. That sometimes the crown doesn't fit just because you're loud enough to wear it. And in the end, Rachel Zegler's Snow White wasn't remembered for innovation or empowerment. It was remembered as the movie that showed the world what happens when Hollywood forgets the one thing audiences actually want, to feel something beautiful again. And just when everyone thought the internet had finished tearing into her, the chaos leveled up. Enter what will forever be known as the dwarf disaster. An event so absurd it deserves its own documentary. Originally, Disney had actually planned to cast real actors with dwarfism, actual people with real talent and a deep connection to the story. For once, it looked like they were making a grounded decision. But then, Peter Dinklage, sitting high atop a mountain of Emmys, decided to ride in on his moral high horse. With one podcast rant, he declared that having dwarfs in Snow White was regressive. That was all it took. One comment, one spark, and Disney folded faster than a paper tiara in the rain. "I was scared of the original cartoon," Rachel confessed later, proudly admitting she only watched it once before deciding it was outdated. And suddenly, out went the real actors who were ready to bring life and heart to those roles. And in came whatever that was. What replaced them were bizarre, poorly rendered CGI blobs, glowing, soulless creations that looked like rejected side characters from a 2007 knockoff Pixar film. They didn't even look finished. They looked like someone tried animating dwarfs on a school laptop right before the deadline. And of course, Rachel clapped like it was the second coming of progress. "We're moving past stereotypes?" she said with a smile, blissfully unaware of the irony. "Oh, really?" Because replacing real, marginalized performers with computer-generated cartoons doesn't exactly scream progress. It was classic modern Hollywood, so desperate to seem evolved that they ended up doing something even less inclusive. The left called it hollow pandering. The right called it woke lunacy. For once, both sides were in rare, total agreement. Disney had lost its mind. Even the very actors who were supposed to play the dwarfs spoke up publicly. One of them said it perfectly. "Peter's rich. We're not." That one line summed up everything wrong with the decision. The privilege, the hypocrisy, the complete tone deafness of it all. And through it all, there was Rachel, grinning for the cameras as if she had just cured world hunger. Critics described it best. She burned someone's house down and then congratulated herself for reducing carbon emissions. That was peak Rachel. Oblivious confidence mixed with Hollywood self-righteousness. But the internet wasn't done. Not even close. Because when the memes started rolling in, it was biblical. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, all united for one cause: roasting Rachel Zegler into digital dust. Threads compared her eyes to drifting continents, saying they needed passports to meet. People edited her face onto every cartoon villain imaginable. Lord Farquaad? Check. Edna Mode? Check. Willy Wonka? Check. Even the creepy cousin from Diary of a Wimpy Kid made an appearance. It was open season. Clips of her interviews spread everywhere. Her now infamous quote played on loop: "She's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not dreaming of true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." It was supposed to sound empowering. Instead, it sounded like an activist PowerPoint presentation disguised as a fairy tale. Twitter turned it into a festival. Full-blown Zegler bonfire nights. People didn't even call her Rachel anymore. She became Lori Farquaad, and the nickname caught fire. The wildest part? These weren't edgy trolls. These were normal people. Casual fans, parents, moviegoers, all united by one belief: she had no business being anywhere near a Disney princess role. And honestly, you couldn't blame them. The theaters were empty. TikTok showed entire screenings of Snow White with maybe 3 people sitting in the audience, and 2 of them were probably employees. Whole cinemas looked like ghost towns, the kind you'd use for staff training videos. Even theater workers joined in the mockery online. Imagine getting roasted by the teenager running the popcorn machine. That's how bad it got. Even the unlikeliest voices joined the pylon. Joe Rogan, Megyn Kelly, two people who wouldn't agree on what temperature water boils, found common ground just to roast Rachel Zegler. She had somehow achieved the impossible: bipartisan hatred. Bipartisan hatred. You have to be historically bad to make the far left and far right high five over your downfall. And here's the irony of it all. After being cast as Disney's new face of diversity and empowerment, Zegler also had to endure hateful, racist attacks online about her Colombian heritage. And those headlines, those sentences of sympathy, felt eerily similar to another story. One that might make you question whether any of this was ever really about progress, or just about politics. When you line the statements up back to back, it's almost uncanny. Word for word. Nearly identical. And when you start to really look at it, it becomes bizarre. Almost like déjà vu written in press releases. But of course, Rachel wasn't done. Because apparently, there's always another chapter in the Rachel Zegler saga. This time, it was the script drama. Rumors began swirling through the theater community that Rachel was personally trying to modernize the script. And honestly, nobody was surprised. Of course she was. Why simply honor the legacy of Eva Peron, one of history's most powerful, complex women, when you can rewrite her story through the lens of TikTok activism and call it empowerment? Critics were livid. Word spread that she was injecting political correctness into a beloved classic. Not subtly, but with all the grace of a sledgehammer. The whispers said she turned Eva into a twerking, glitter-covered rebel, a caricature of modern rebellion. Audiences walked in expecting power, dignity, and tragedy. What they got, according to reports, looked more like a pride-floated Coachella than a portrayal of Argentina's most iconic figure. The message was gone. The nuance was gone. The soul was gone. All that was left was Rachel, playing dress-up and mistaking spectacle for depth. And yet somehow, Snow White, the very same film that bombed so hard it earned just $50 per screen over Mother's Day weekend, is now the #1 streaming title on Disney+. How? That's the million-dollar question. Even though those rewrite rumors were never officially confirmed, no one even questioned them. That's how far her credibility had fallen. She didn't just lose the benefit of the doubt, it was revoked, shredded, and tossed in the studio dumpster. People believed every new controversy because, at that point, it sounded exactly like something she'd do. And that right there is the worst PR diagnosis imaginable. When your reputation has become so untrustworthy that even fiction feels believable. Then came the inevitable tears. Because of course, there were tears. She cried during ovations, again. But this time, social media didn't even blink. Sympathy bait, they said. Another PR stunt. And honestly, who could blame them? When every apology is followed by another self-inflicted scandal, even the tears start to look rehearsed. The mascara becomes part of the costume. And in the middle of it all, Rachel gave yet another quote destined for ridicule. If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress as an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it's streamed. At this point, Rachel Zegler wasn't just controversial, she was radioactive. That's not an exaggeration. That's the actual word industry insiders reportedly used to describe her. Radioactive. You know how spectacularly you have to mess up for Hollywood, a place where scandal is practically a weekday hobby, to start treating you like a biohazard? Casting directors began whispering that they were done with the circus. Translation: if Rachel's name appeared on the call sheet, they were out. This wasn't a PR stumble anymore. This was a full-scale nuclear meltdown, and she was patient zero. Headline after headline piled up, each one documenting the same thing: a career imploding in real time because one actress couldn't stop talking long enough to save herself. But here's where it gets genuinely embarrassing. The fallout didn't just hit Rachel, it spread. Disney's marketing departments, the ones tied to Snow White, faced massive layoffs and internal reshuffles. Entire teams were axed or reassigned. The message from the top was as cold as it was clear. Never use her in promos again. Not wait it out. Not tone it down. Never. Her face had become so toxic that even referencing her was considered brand suicide. It's terrible, and if we're being brutally honest, a little bit hilarious. Because somehow, the studio that once crowned her as the future of Disney magic is now pretending she doesn't exist. And perhaps the funniest part of it all? Leading up to Snow White's release, Disney seemed to be doing everything in its power to keep Rachel Zegler away from the media. Every press event? Canceled or rescheduled. Every talk show appearance? Quietly cut. Every project she was even remotely attached to, suddenly under review. For an actress who couldn't stop talking, it seems Hollywood finally found the mute button. In the end, Rachel Zegler's name didn't need to be blacklisted. It quietly erased itself, line by line, meeting by meeting, until it vanished from studio discussions entirely. Her image disappeared from pitch decks, her name deleted from internal emails, her presence wiped from Zoom calls like she never existed there in the first place. No dramatic announcement, no angry memo, just a quiet, collective understanding that she had become more trouble than talent. And that's the most brutal part. She didn't need Hollywood to cancel her. She did it all on her own. Every press junket became a live masterclass in self-destruction. In the span of 5 minutes, she could insult the fans, the character, the studio, and her co-stars. A performance that would have been impressive if it weren't career-ending. It takes skill to offend an entire industry before the film even premieres. And somehow, Rachel managed it. She became the first actress in modern Hollywood history to bomb a movie before it even hit theaters. Not after opening weekend, before. That's a catastrophic level of failure most PR teams can only have nightmares about. The film didn't tank because it was bad. It tanked because audiences refused to give it a chance the moment they saw her name attached. That's beyond infamous. That's historic. Infamous. That's historic. And then came the next phase, the emotional pivot. Enter the crying tour. Suddenly, Rachel was everywhere, pouring her heart out about anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. She spoke of daily crying spells, burnout, and the toll of online criticism. She even claimed she'd considered plastic surgery just to stop people from calling her ugly online. Now, let's be clear, mental health is serious, but the timing, almost too convenient. Every emotional confession seemed to arrive right after another public meltdown. She'd burn bridges, then cry over the ashes. She said she couldn't post a single photo without being bombarded with hateful comments. And sure, the internet can be cruel. But this was the same internet she'd spent months mocking, scolding, and talking down to. When the backlash came, she acted blindsided. "I cry every day. I just want it all to stop," she said. But by that point, audiences had stopped listening. They didn't drift away. They ran. Because people don't go to Disney movies to be lectured about privilege or systemic oppression. They go to escape, to dream, to believe in something magical. Rachel took that wonder and turned it into a one-woman seminar on gender politics. She didn't reinvent the fairy tale. She dismantled it, live on camera. And when the apologies came, they landed like lead balloons. Every sorry sounded like it was ghostwritten by a PR intern trying to meet a word count. Recycled phrases, empty empathy, and that classic tone of, "I'm sorry you're offended," it fooled no one. Even left-leaning media, once her loudest defenders, quietly walked away. That's when you know the fall isn't political. It's personal, universal. And then, the curtain call. Rachel Zegler, once touted as Disney's next golden star, now finds herself standing on stage, crying under the lights at Evita, while Twitter tears apart her mascara and monologues. The infamous balcony moment became her final act, a live symbol of everything that went wrong. The fake tears, the forced symbol